Hello and welcome to Nutshell Recaps. This video explains the synopsis of the movie, Fresh. Warning, there will be spoilers, so proceed with caution. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, it will really help our channel grow. The main character of the film is Noah, a 23-year-old who is in severe need of a lover. She has gone out with a number of men after using online dating services, but they have all ended in disappointment. She meets Chadwick on one of these dates, and he turns out to be a total moron. He solely speaks about his money and makes misogynistic statements. Furthermore, he makes it plain that Noah will cover the cost of their dinner. Noah decides to leave while their conversation goes on since she is getting irritated with them. However, Chadwick makes sure to criticize her harshly. He refers to her as a letdown who squandered his valuable time. Noah just walks away without saying anything because she is used to being let down like this. She tells Molly, her best friend, about the encounter later at the gym. She thinks she will always be alone and not get married. Molly reassures her, nevertheless, that God is holding out the best man for her. Noah meets a man named Steve at a local store late at night. Noah seems to be enamored with his charisma as the two rapidly become friends over their love of cotton candy grapes. Steve asks for her number out of the blue before they part ways. Noah delivers it to him right away, being the desperate girl that she is. She discusses Steve with Molly, her best friend, the next day. He is a good-looking man with a kind demeanor. But the unfortunate part is that he hasn't texted her yet, according to Noah. Molly responds by joking that he's most likely married. Later, Noah finally receives a call from Steve while driving home. Without waiting around, he invites her out on a date. The unexpected request surprises Noah, but she's in such need that she gives in without giving it any thought. Steve and Noah become more forthcoming and talk about their pasts while on their date. He discloses that he is a transplant surgeon from Texas who recently moved to this area. Noah responds that she recently received her degree from college and is seeking employment. The two then become friends because they are single and without parents. Steve also says he doesn't have time to utilize social media because he is so focused on his business. Noah invites him to visit his flat after their date. There, the two have a romantic moment as things grow heated. Noah wakes up feeling rejuvenated the following morning. She hasn't been this happy in a long time. After taking a covert picture of a dozing Steve, she phones Molly, her closest friend, to tell her about her amazing night. Molly is thrilled for her, but finds it odd that Steve isn't online. Noah reveals during their talk that Molly's ex-boyfriend Paul was working as a barman at the restaurant the previous evening. It is revealed that Molly ended her relationship with Paul and recently came out as a lesbian. Noah meets up with her new boyfriend again the next night. They talk more about their lives over some takeaway. Noah says that Molly, her best friend, is well-versed in all of her personal details. Steve proposes they dance once the two have finished their meal. Though skeptical at first, Noah ends up having a great time. Eventually, they give up and take a seat. Steve then asks Noah, seemingly out of the blue, whether she wants to go on a weekend trip with him. When she inquires about the location, he doesn't reveal anything. She has begun to like him, so she still agrees. Noah phones her closest friend and informs her about the impending vacation after Steve leaves. Given that Noah is going out with someone she hardly knows, Molly is a little concerned. The latter, though, tells her closest friend that everything will be all right. In addition, she emails her a photo of Steve and claims that he is perfect. The next day, Steve brings Noah to his house and informs her that they will be departing early the next morning for the vacation. Though our girl agrees naively, she is still unaware of what is ahead for her. She attempts to text Molly to find out where she is, but it seems like her phone reception is weak. They spend several hours driving before they eventually reach a somber-looking home. It seems to be cut off from the rest of the city entirely. Although Noah finds this a little strange, she stays silent for the time being. Steve gets ready a drink and hands it to her after some time. Noah feels lightheaded and faints as soon as she tastes it, even though he asks her to guess what's within. When she awakens, she discovers that she and Steve are imprisoned in a chamber. When he admits to drugging her, Noah is left feeling afraid and bewildered. Then, Steve unleashes a devastating revelation. He is a cannibal who sells human flesh to affluent customers in addition to eating it himself. He explains that he fools and kidnaps young women by bringing them on dates because many of his clients enjoy the meat of women. In order to preserve the freshness of Noah's flesh while gradually removing the bodily parts, he also informs her that he intends to keep her alive for as long as feasible. Fearful for her life, Noah attempts to defend herself, but Steve subdues her and tethers her to the ground. Noah calls for aid in a desperate manner after the cannibal departs. In response, Penny, a lady from the room next door, says that Steve has abducted other women from this location. The two women discover they are orphans when they converse with one another. This implies that Steve only pursues single ladies since he is aware that no one will seek them out. At that moment, a different woman begins to sing and Penny discloses that it's Melissa, Steve's other victim, who has gone insane since being abducted. Molly, on the other hand, worries when she doesn't hear from her companion for some time. Unexpectedly, after she texts her a few times on No's phone, Steve texts her back. He says they are having a great time at a cottage located distant from the city. In addition, he sends her a picture of a stunning waterfall and informs her that No will be turning off her phone for a bit. She is on this trip to experience nature and get away from technology. Knowing her best friend quite well, Molly thinks that something is wrong. She then uses the internet to locate the photograph of the waterfall. As it happens, it turns out to be a stock image downloaded from an unidentified website. Conversely, Steve makes another approach to Noah, but this time he's nice. He even lets her take a shower after giving her some new clothes. Noah tries to flee by taking advantage of this compassion. Sadly, though, Steve is able to catch her. As a form of punishment, he drags her to the operating room and removes her buttocks. Molly begins searching for her best buddy elsewhere. She initially heads to Paul's restaurant, where she first went on a date with Steve, her ex-boyfriend. After an uncomfortable greeting, Molly gets right to the point. She asks Paul if he's heard of this Steve man. Since the barman isn't permitted to provide client information, he seems a little apprehensive. But he can't resist complying because Molly is so insistent. The man's true name, according to Paul, is Brendan Kemp. Molly looks up the name online when she gets home later. She finds out that he has 2 children and is wed to Anne. Molly then makes the decision to visit Anne. In addition, she gives Paul the address and requests that he come look for her in case something goes wrong. No discovers that she is the sole victim Steve has slept with back at the butcher house. This suggests that he could be partial to her. No then makes the decision to seize this opportunity. She ceases resisting after that and makes an effort to woo Steve whenever she has the chance. She also declares that she wants to taste human flesh, displaying a sudden interest in it. When Molly finds Anne in the following scene, she immediately lets Anne know that her husband has been seeing other women. This information seems to have shocked the woman, so she invites Molly in for a conversation. Unfortunately, Steve appears out of nowhere as they continue talking. He maintains his composure and behaves as though he is unfamiliar with the name Noah. Molly is slightly persuaded by this and thinks she's broken into the wrong house. She does, however, give her pal another call before leaving. She is shocked to learn that Steve is the kidnapper when the phone rings in his pocket. Steve slyly suggests that she shouldn't have come here now that he's been revealed. Molly tries to flee, but Anna knocks her unconscious from behind before she can escape. She turns out to be Steve's cannibal friend as well. After a while, Molly is relocated by Steve to his secluded butcher shop located in the forest. He then returns to Noah, gives her some new clothes, and extends an invitation to supper. Anne displays her prosthetic limb when we encounter her in the lavatory in a different scene. This implies that before she married Steve, she was one of his victims. Steve and No talk deeply to each other at dinner, almost like they are a couple. When she asks how he got into this line of work, he tells her that at the age of 18, he had his first taste of human flesh. He was first afraid about getting caught by the authorities, but after that, he was unable to get enough of that flavor. He made acquaintances who appreciated his peculiar taste in food as the years went by and eventually developed a hunger for human flesh. He eventually became a human flesh trafficker after discovering a society that was prepared to pay a high price for this unusual meat. Following his story, Steve extends an invitation to No to sample human flesh. Despite her distaste, she puts on a smiling face and eats it in order to maintain her facade. Steve drags Molly away for his grisly intentions after supper. Paul, on the other hand, becomes concerned and begins looking for his ex-girlfriend after not hearing from her for some time. As we go to the next scene, Steve extends an invitation to No for supper. He offers her a pretty pink dress, which makes it even clearer that she has earned his trust by this point. As No tucks into some human flesh later at supper, Steve confesses that it's Melissa. Our girl is obviously horrified by this, but her expression doesn't reflect it. Following supper, Steve reveals to her a hidden room stuffed with artifacts from his victims, proving that he has already kidnapped and murdered other women. Then he reveals something repulsive. In fact, his clients enjoy having the possessions of the women they consume because it brings them closer to their food. Noah notices Molly's phone in the corner at that exact moment. This helps her realize that although her best friend had come to find her, she had actually become just another victim of his. Enraged, Noah makes the immediate decision to act. She needs to move fast because she knows Steve could change his mood at any time. She thus summons the bravery to ask him to a dance. Remarkably, he concurs and even takes off her handcuffs. She pretends to be sultry as she brings him to his room after they dance romantically to set the mood. But instead of making him laugh, she viciously consumes his testicles. After that, Noah quickly snatches the keys and flees as Steve's still writhing in agony. She arrives at the compartment housing the other victims quickly. With the exception of Penny and Molly, her best friend, everyone seems to be dead. They are soon set free by Noah, and the three make their getaway. However, Steve appears out of nowhere and assaults them. The two engage in a fierce struggle, and even though Steve is outnumbered and hurt, he prevails over the women. But he wears out quickly and is knocked out. After stealing Molly's phone, the girls leave the area. However, they are limited in their reach because Penny seems to be missing a limb. Regretfully, Steve appears once more, but this time he's armed. He shoots them multiple times, but they all miss. Paul, in the meantime, has found himself outside the residence by using Molly's phone's GPS. He bolts from the scene as soon as he hears gunfire. When the girls see this, they know that aid is not going to come very soon. They therefore make the decision to act independently. In an attempt to disorient the cannibal, they swiftly devise a plan and divide into several routes. And the three girls band together to beat Steve to a pulp when he lunges at one of them. After that, Noah takes his own gun and kills him. After that, when they attempt to use Molly's phone to call for assistance, it suddenly turns off. After some time, Anne shows up at the location in search of her spouse as well. She becomes furious and strikes Noah when she discovers his lifeless body on the ground. Then, as the two women argue back and forth, it seems as though Anne is getting the better of her. Thankfully, Molly shows there just in time to crush the woman's head in with a shovel. She keeps doing this till Anne eventually dies. Molly and Noah are in the closing scene, trying to piece together what went wrong, when the latter gets a text from Chadwick. "You up?" he asks her.